Breaking news. A powerful winter storm has once again brought Ontario to a standstill, as intense snow squalls and rapidly freezing temperatures crippled major highways and triggered a wave of dangerous crashes. Over a 2-day period, a volatile system drawing moisture from Lake Huron and Lake Erie slammed southwestern Ontario with sudden bursts of heavy snow pushing visibility to near zero and turning roadways into sheets of ice. Authorities say the situation escalated with alarming speed. In just a matter of hours, hundreds of traffic accidents were reported, overwhelming emergency responders and forcing widespread closures along key transportation routes. The epicenter of the disruption was Highway 401, the busiest highway in Canada, where multiple chain reaction crashes involving passenger vehicles and tractor-trailers brought traffic to a complete halt. Meteorologists warn that this was not a slow-moving storm but a fast-developing winter system capable of collapsing normal driving conditions within minutes. As temperatures dropped into the low 20s, Fahrenheit and wind-driven snow erased visibility. Routine travel quickly turned into a life-threatening situation. Tonight, officials urge residents to stay off the roads as Ontario faces one of its most dangerous winter travel emergencies in recent years. As the storm intensified, the scale of disruption across southwestern Ontario became unmistakable. Law enforcement agencies began reporting a surge of crashes that quickly surpassed normal response capacity. Within hours, hundreds of collisions were logged across multiple jurisdictions, stretching emergency resources and forcing authorities to prioritize only the most severe incidents. The greatest strain fell on Highway 401, a critical artery that moves people, freight, and cross-border commerce every day. Chain reaction crashes unfolded along several stretches of the highway as passenger vehicles and tractor-trailers lost traction almost simultaneously. Traffic cameras showed lanes clogged with disabled vehicles, some spun sideways, others wedged against guardrails or blocking access for emergency crews. Once traffic stalled, drivers behind had no alternative routes and no room to maneuver. Nearby corridors experienced similar breakdowns. Sections of highways 402 and 403 were temporarily closed after pileups made travel unsafe and prevented tow trucks and ambulances from reaching crash scenes. Each closure pushed traffic onto secondary roads that were equally unprepared for the sudden surge, compounding congestion and risk. Commercial transportation was also heavily impacted. Freight trucks carrying time-sensitive goods were immobilized, disrupting regional supply chains and delaying deliveries bound for manufacturing hubs and U.S. border crossings. For industries dependent on just-in-time logistics, even a few hours of delay translated into significant operational setbacks. Officials described the situation as a cascading failure. As soon as key routes became blocked, every additional crash magnified the problem. With snow continuing to fall and visibility remaining poor, Ontario's highway network, built for efficiency and speed, was rapidly overwhelmed by a storm that exposed its limits under extreme winter conditions. As the storm intensified, the scale of disruption across southwestern Ontario became unmistakable. Law enforcement agencies began reporting a surge of crashes that quickly surpassed normal response capacity. Within hours, hundreds of collisions were logged across multiple jurisdictions, stretching emergency resources and forcing authorities to prioritize only the most severe incidents. The greatest strain fell on Highway 401, a critical artery that moves people, freight, and cross-border commerce every day. Chain reaction crashes unfolded along several stretches of the highway as passenger vehicles and tractor-trailers lost traction almost simultaneously. Traffic cameras showed lanes clogged with disabled vehicles, some spun sideways, others wedged against guardrails or blocking access for emergency crews. Once traffic stalled, drivers behind had no alternative routes and no room to maneuver. Nearby corridors experienced similar breakdowns. Sections of Highways 402 and 403 were temporarily closed after pileups made travel unsafe and prevented tow trucks and ambulances from reaching crash scenes. Each closure pushed traffic onto secondary roads that were equally unprepared for the sudden surge, compounding congestion and risk. Commercial transportation was also heavily impacted. Freight trucks carrying time-sensitive goods were immobilized, disrupting regional supply chains and delaying deliveries bound for manufacturing hubs and U.S. border crossings. For industries dependent on just-in-time logistics, even a few hours of delay translated into significant operational setbacks. Officials described the situation as a cascading failure. As soon as key routes became blocked, every additional crash magnified the problem. With snow continuing to fall and visibility remaining poor, Ontario's highway network, built for efficiency and speed, was rapidly overwhelmed by a storm that exposed its limits under extreme winter conditions.
Do it again.
As traffic ground to a halt, the storm's impact became deeply personal for those caught on the roads. Along Highway 401 and surrounding routes, drivers found themselves trapped with no clear information about when movement would resume. What began as a routine commute or short regional trip turned into a prolonged wait inside vehicles surrounded by blowing snow and stalled traffic. Many motorists reported sitting motionless for 2 to 3 hours or longer. Engines remained running to provide heat as outside temperatures hovered in the low 20s Fahrenheit, steadily draining fuel tanks. For drivers running low on gas, the decision to shut off the engine meant risking exposure to freezing air, while keeping it running raised fears of running out of fuel before help arrived. Visibility outside the vehicle remained dangerously limited. Wind-driven snow reduced sight lines to just a few yards, making it difficult to see where traffic ended or identify obstacles ahead. Stepping out of a car carried serious risk as vehicles still moving through the congestion continued to slide and skid. Despite official guidance urging people to stay inside their vehicles, some drivers exited to check on nearby motorists or assess whether lanes were completely blocked. Emergency call centers were quickly overwhelmed. Dispatchers fielded a flood of reports involving stalled vehicles, minor injuries, and drivers in distress. In many cases, responders simply could not reach those in need. Jackknifed trucks and blocked lanes prevented tow operators and ambulances from accessing the most congested sections of highway. For those stranded, the most difficult challenge was uncertainty. With no visible progress and limited updates, drivers were left waiting in freezing conditions, facing the reality that once a major highway collapses during extreme winter weather, immediate relief is often out of reach. As emergency crews moved in, the storm revealed another dangerous reality. Even responders were operating at the edge of safety. Ontario Provincial Police confirmed that icy pavement whiteout conditions and uncontrolled traffic turned crash scenes into some of the most hazardous environments of the entire event. Patrol cars, tow trucks, and ambulances were forced to work with severely limited visibility, while vehicles around them continued to slide across frozen lanes. In one of the most serious incidents, 2 police officers were injured after their cruisers were struck from behind while responding to a collision on Highway 403. Emergency lights were active, but drivers approaching the scene had little time to react. Reduced traction and near-zero visibility meant braking often led to loss of control rather than avoidance. Both officers were taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, highlighting how quickly response operations themselves became life-threatening. Authorities repeatedly reminded drivers of move-over and slow-down laws designed to protect roadside workers. However, during intense snow squalls, those safeguards proved difficult to follow. Wind-driven snow erased visual cues, lane boundaries disappeared, and distances were impossible to judge. Vehicles attempting to slow down frequently skidded toward stopped traffic and first responders on foot. To reduce the risk of additional injuries, emergency teams were forced to adjust their tactics. Some responses were delayed, while others were staged farther from active lanes. In the most congested areas, non-critical incidents were temporarily left unattended as crews focused on preventing secondary crashes and reaching those at greatest risk. With hundreds of incidents unfolding simultaneously, public safety resources were stretched to their limits. Officials acknowledged that when winter storms reach this level of severity, even well-prepared emergency systems struggle to operate safely, underscoring how thin the margin becomes between rescue and disaster. Meteorologists say the danger of this storm was rooted in a powerful and volatile Great Lakes setup. As an intense surge of Arctic air swept southward, it passed over the comparatively warmer waters of Lake Huron and Lake Erie, pulling large amounts of moisture into the atmosphere. That interaction rapidly fueled narrow but aggressive bands of snow, a phenomenon widely known as lake effect snow. Unlike large winter systems that spread snowfall evenly over wide areas, lake effect snow behaves with extreme precision and speed. Snowfall rates within these bands can exceed 2 inches per hour, while nearby locations see far lighter conditions. For drivers, this creates a deadly illusion of safety. Roads may appear manageable for miles only to disappear into whiteout conditions within seconds. Strong winds intensified the threat. Gusts estimated between 30 and 40 miles per hour lifted loose snow and blasted it across highways, erasing lane markings and obscuring stopped traffic ahead. As temperatures dropped into the low 20s, Fahrenheit wet snow quickly compacted and refroze, turning pavement into solid ice. Under these conditions, braking distances increased dramatically, and even vehicles traveling at reduced speeds struggled to maintain control. Experts warn that high-speed roadways are especially vulnerable during these events. At freeway speeds, drivers often have only moments to react when visibility collapses. Any sudden braking can trigger a chain reaction as following vehicles encounter the same loss of traction almost simultaneously. Climate researchers also point to a growing concern. Warmer lake temperatures earlier in winter can intensify lake-effect storms when Arctic air arrives. Combined with shifting wind patterns, this creates highly unpredictable events capable of overwhelming transportation systems long before warnings can fully take effect. As crews continued clearing wreckage and reopening lanes, officials emphasized that the danger did not disappear with the slowing snowfall. Ice-covered pavement, drifting snow, and rapidly dropping temperatures remained a serious threat across southwestern Ontario. Transportation authorities warned that lake-effect snow bands can redevelop with little notice, turning a seemingly passable highway back into a whiteout zone in minutes. This storm delivered a clear and unsettling message. What began as routine winter travel escalated into a large-scale transportation emergency within hours. Hundreds of crashes, prolonged highway closures, injured responders, and thousands of stranded motorists revealed how quickly modern road networks can fail when extreme weather pushes conditions past a critical threshold. Corridors like Highway 401, designed for speed efficiency and economic flow, proved vulnerable when visibility vanished and traction disappeared. Meteorologists caution that storms like this may become more common as winter weather patterns across the Great Lakes grow increasingly volatile. For drivers, preparation is no longer optional. Monitoring forecasts, delaying non-essential trips, carrying emergency supplies, and respecting road closures can mean the difference between a long delay and a life-threatening situation. Officials urge residents to remain cautious in the days ahead, as additional snow and rapidly changing conditions are still possible. The guidance remains simple but urgent. Slow down, stay informed, and avoid unnecessary travel when winter storms intensify. And for those who follow these stories to understand how extreme weather impacts real people and critical infrastructure, your awareness matters. If you value in-depth coverage like this, like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for continued reporting. Staying informed won't stop the next storm, but it can help you be ready when it arrives.